Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions Daily, and they are back in the hot seat. Kian, Golzari and Sharon Evan. How are we doing, guys?
Great, thank you.
All good, Danny. All good.
Good. So while we're obviously Sharon's been on Branded by Women, we haven't seen you for a couple of weeks. Kian, what has been going on with you?
It's been a while. I miss you guys, man. I was used to this being a regular occurrence in my week, so happy to be back. Happy to connect with everyone
Did you think
again.
we dropped you, or did you just realise that week was Branded by Women week?
I did. I felt very neglected, and I was also considering shaving a beard and getting a wig so I could be on the Branded by Women summit as well. But no, I guess for me in the last 2 weeks, the biggest thing I've done is I launched my YouTube channel, which I'm really excited about. I've been working on that sort of quietly.
Do you want to drop a link in below? I haven't watched much of the content yet, but do you want to tell them about your group and what you've been doing on your YouTube channel as well?
Sure, yeah. So I kind of just felt like a need for, to be putting all this information out on YouTube as well. And it's sort of like a hobby that I picked up during quarantine and lockdown was to learn all about YouTube. And so I've just sort of been like, I took a course on that. Got a decent camera, I built a studio, and I've just really been like putting out a lot of professional content in terms of sourcing from China. And luckily, the last couple of times I went to China, I took the camera with me. So I've got inside footage into the Canton Fair, into factories, stuff that you're just not able to see anywhere else. So, and I've now just recorded like 5 or 6 episodes, and I'm basically posting them every single week, 1 episode a week. So I will drop a link. The channel's just called Sourcing with Kian on YouTube. So if you just go to YouTube and type in Sourcing with Kian, you'll
and you
find
can see the Facebook group in the ticker below. Check out the Facebook group, Sourcing with Kian as well. Sharon, other than Branded by Women, what you been up to this week?
I have been, wow, what have I not been up to this week? I most of the week recorded for I'm working on a product research workshop. So that's what I did most of the week, apart from coaching, working on a new brand, being a mother, and trying to find time to sleep. That's what I've been up to. I maybe have slept 3 hours a night in the past week.
Yeah.
And of course, I watched the other speakers speaking in Branded by Women as well.
Good. Excellent. Sleep is a nice thing, but it's a luxury right now. I think there's so much to go on. And look at this beautiful weather. It's glorious outside. Right. So what we got here, Facebook user. Hi, Danny. Sharon, Kian, welcome back. Anna, Isabel is here. Hey, guys. So good to see you all. In the feed, Gemma's here. Amegla's here. Carlos is here. Mohammed, Ahmed, Matthew here. Pat Taylor is here. Lawrence Hassing. And so let's start getting into it. So you get what you negotiate. What does that mean, Kian?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people that I notice, right, in this industry is that they're looking for products and looking for prices online, and they kind of just take the price that they're given as the actual price. But a lot of people don't actually do the negotiation, because you have to understand that sometimes, or most of the time, the Chinese actually inflate their prices to begin with because they're expecting you to negotiate. But if you don't negotiate, then you're just paying like that increased margin. And there's an art to it in terms of like how to negotiate and when to negotiate as well. Like sort of pick your moments when you have leverage, sort of anticipate, do they really want your order, or do you want to work with that supplier more than they want to work with you? And once you can like understand these sort of relationships and boundaries, then like the right time to sort of negotiate. And I think like negotiation doesn't just start and stop with your suppliers. It's with everything. It's with your freight costs, with your whatever, like how you work with your employees. You have to negotiate in every step of the way. But I guess today in particular, we're talking about products and negotiation with factories and things like that.
Yeah. So Sharon, what does that actually mean to you when I say that? You get what you negotiate.
You get what you negotiate.
Yes. So basically, the discussion here is about time, and I think a perfect example of when to not negotiate final price is at the Canton Fair, when someone's just paid out for a stand and they're working on a markup price because they need to cover their costs. That's an example of when not to negotiate, I would say. And the other thing is, you get what you negotiate. If you go too hard on someone, then your product starts to take a hit in terms of the quality, because the money's got to come from somewhere. So it ends up being it's stripped back on your product, and whatever it may be ends up being the lighter version of what it should really be. So there is a line, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's like several times in the process where you can negotiate as well. because like quite often when you ask for a price of something, that's not actually the finished product, because you add in the development that you want to do. There might be some mold costs involved and you have to negotiate that. And then as well as, you negotiate the price before you actually confirm the product to go into production. But then you can also negotiate again when the goods are finished and ready for shipment. And maybe you want to negotiate some credit on your order as well. Or you want to negotiate, not paying for your sample fees and stuff like that. So there's all different types of negotiation and all different times of negotiation you can do as well.
Indeed. So let's get into some of the things. What you got a bit of a checklist there, Kian. What should people be doing in terms of this?
So I was thinking like, I'll give you some of my like negotiation tactics, right? One of my favorite things to do, right, is let's say that you're going to order the MOQ. Let's say, for example, MOQ, minimum order quantity. Let's just say that it was 1,000 pieces, right? And you're going to order 1,000. But what I like to do is something that I call like upsell quantity, which you ask the supplier for a breakdown of price for 1,000 pieces, 5,000 pieces, and 10,000 pieces. Now that's really important, because now the suppliers just showed you the price for 10,000 pieces, which shows you the lowest that they're willing to go, because you've already passed their MOQ, so they know they can make it at that 1,000 pieces, but they've shown you the bottom price. And what I like to say is not just, oh, hey, give me the price for 10,000 pieces, but I'm only going to order 1,000. What I say is, hey, look, the first time we do this product, or when we trial this product, or when we do it for a new supplier, we only just place a trial order, which is 1,000 pieces. But we need your support, and we need the price that you're offering for 10,000 pieces, because if you give us that price, we can make a bigger dent in the market. We can offer that price saving to our consumers. If that lower price to our consumers will mean more sales will mean we're going to come back, and the bigger order we come back with will be for that 10,000. But if you give us the 1,000 price now, we probably won't hit that traction in the market than if you gave us a 10,000 price. So you're kind of dangling the carrot to them to say, hey, if you give me your absolute best price, you're going to get more orders, and you've said it in a way that we're working in partnership together. So that's kind of like one of the negotiation strategies I like to use. And then, Danny, as you said rightly at the beginning of the show, is that like you don't go too hard on your negotiation either, because I always say in China they'll give you any price that you want, because they will give you the price to get your order, but then you're going to feel that later on, because they've taken a shortcut somewhere in the production process in order to give you that price. And that's why it's so important to educate yourself on the process of your products, understanding getting prices from different manufacturers to really understand the market price. So you know that, okay, if everyone's giving you $9.10, $9.20, $9, and then someone gives you like $7, you know that's not realistic, because you've already educated yourself. And the way you educate yourself is on the specification sheet by putting all your details in one document. And that's like your materials, your Pantone colors, your dimensions, everything, images for reference. And by you sending that specification sheet, some people call it RFQ, request for quotation, to loads of different suppliers, and you get those back. Now you understand the market price, and now you understand the parameters of which you can negotiate in, because you kind of want to go maybe like minus 5% than the market price, because that's realistic, because their margin that they're adding is probably between 5 and 15%. But if you're trying to go like now 20% below what's the market price, it's just not going to work. But you have that knowledge at your disposal once you've educated yourself. Yeah. Sharon, anything to add there?
I don't know. It was a lot to take out of what Kian said now. I've never been in China. So all of my, and I have work also mostly with Amazon sellers myself. Now, with Kian and I spoke about this a little bit earlier. I have 3 suppliers that are from China and 1 supplier that is in Poland. And it also depends on where you're obviously getting your, who you're negotiating with. You don't negotiate the same way with the Chinese that you would with the Americans, or with you, Danny. You're sourced from the UK. Do you feel that your UK suppliers and your Chinese suppliers, you negotiate the same way? I don't.
No, I don't. Do you know what? When it comes to negotiation, I have like I suppose my approach is like, you have to have a win-win, right? I could probably go in, use reverse psychology, go really hard, and then that person then walks away with the table and him or her hasn't had a win. I'd rather everyone wins, because you're building a relationship, because further down the line, I might need help from them, and they realized I didn't go hard in negotiation. I was very fair. So the response back when I need something back possibly is to be fair as well. So some of the things I do is I look at, well, if that's a bit more expensive here, I take a little bit off of here, negotiate over here, and what can I do to cut back here? Does that make sense? So you don't just put it all on the factory. You look at all the opportunities. It might be a slight adjustment in price. You might need to put it up by a couple of percent or something. Work it out. Will it hurt it in the market? And look at all the different angles. But I think at the end of the day, you're looking to build a long-term relationship. If you're that person that keeps going back and squeezing the factory and that factory owner doesn't like you, you're always going to be at the back end of the queue. I'd rather them love working. I'd rather them go, they pay well, they take care of us. Do you see what I mean? And sometimes you have to leave a little bit on the table to gain more down the road.
Exactly. That's a great point, Danny. And that was what I was going to bring up next as well, that it's all about working in partnership and working for the long term and painting the long-term picture, because the customers that the suppliers dislike the most are the ones that place an order 1 year and then they go and place it to someone else because they managed to save 20% on their order, rather than just discussing it and saying, well, I would have just dropped the price 20 cents if you talked about it. So you always want to sort of paint the long-term picture. And what I like to also do is that, like, tell them who else you're supplying, like who are your other customers, because, you know, like a lot of people are just sort of confined to the Amazon space, but a lot of other people also sell into retail, or they sell, like, you know, little small shops, or they sell in different markets. Maybe they supply the Japanese market, Amazon, or German Amazon and stuff like that. And that excites suppliers because, well, you know what happened at the end of the last year with the Trump tariffs? The tariffs went up so much and the orders dropped. But if you're like, hey, I also supply Germany, I supply the UK, I supply Japan, which are not affected by these tariffs, then they're more likely to offer you support, you know, if you just make them aware that you're selling internationally. And then tell them who your customers are as well, because, you know, a lot of these big retailers, like your Tesco's and your Walmarts and stuff like that, well, they require like 90 days credit on the orders. But then you go back to the supplier and you tell them that as well and say, hey, look, I'm going to get this big order for 100,000 pieces from Walmart or Target, but to get that order, I need to give them 90 days credit. So for me to get that order and for you to manufacture it, I also need 90 days credit from you. And then now you're working in partnership together. And Danny, like what you said as well, is that, you know, you don't want to push them too hard, and you also want it to be win-win. And I honestly say this to my manufacturers. I say, look, when the price goes down for whatever reason, like exchange rate, labor costs, raw material costs, bring my price down. But also when the price goes up, when your labor costs go up, have the conversation with me and say, hey, look, I'm feeling a pressure on pricing. My prices have gone up. Will you accept a higher price? And I've sometimes gladly accepted a higher price because there's been enough margin in it for me anyway. It's okay making 43% rather than 45% if it's going to make the supplier happy, who's my long-term partner. You know what I mean? So like it has to work both ways.
Makes sense. Cyb says hello. Sorry.
No, go for it. Say it first, and then I'll say what I want to say.
Okay. Cyb says hello from the glorious Somerset. A new week and a new month, and still in lockdown. Yes, the first of the month. Do you know it's a year to the day that we did Seller Sessions live? So
wow.
Another day of glorious weather. So I'm looking forward to that in July. Anyway, Wasim says hello from Australia. Juan's here in the feed. Mark Steer is here. Anthony's here. Qasim is here. Abu is here. Sarah's here. Pedro. Paul Sheridan. Fabian Wency is here. Nick. Kat, how you doing, brother? Nanette's here. Jamie, how you doing, bro? Gemma's here, and Megla's here. Megla's here, who's obviously got a long, rich history in the game with terms of negotiation. She says, totally agree with Danny. Relationships are so important. Some suppliers in India won't work with importers that squeeze them too much. Do you want to go back to your point, Sharon, before I cut in?
Yeah, so that was something I was going to say. I was thinking about how to say what I want to say. So you guys know I'm originally from New Zealand, but I come from an Israeli background and I live in Israel. And in the Israeli mentality, it's everyone haggles. It's like, it's very much in general Middle Eastern. I mean, Kian's background's Middle Eastern as well. Like it's everyone haggles. And I have found, because I coach, I do one-on-one coaching, there's a big difference between where people come from, how they negotiate, like Americans and from the UK and things like that. And like, I found that, for example, a lot of Americans have come to me and said, I just don't feel comfortable with asking for this. Or also people like British people as well. I don't know how to ask this. And like, I've never had that because I'm just like, this is what I need. Can you do it? And if not, I'll find a way to do it. So I never tried to haggle or negotiate too much. I don't think that always well, it's not that I don't think, we all know this and we all agreed about this. The cheapest price is not always the best price. right? And I also say this, and it's not just for suppliers, it's also, for example, for shipping, right? I have so many people come and say to me, well, this freight forwarder gave you this price, but this freight forwarder gave me this price. And I'm like, you're not comparing apples to apples. This one's giving you a, let's say with all the tariffs, DDP, not DDP, but, you know, door to door, everything's included, but it's Air Express. And this one's giving you Air Standard or whatever it may be. People also need to negotiate. To compare apples to apples. And I think that when it comes to trying to get the best price, a lot of people watching us here are also newbies. And like Kian said earlier, there's also the right time to ask it. I don't go always all in on the first order and say, you know, I'm going to be honest, I am only working with new suppliers now. I haven't worked with a brand new supplier in over a year. I've been working with my same suppliers for like the last 3 years. I've had a few new ones over the early last year, but it's now the first time I'm starting to work with new suppliers again for my own stuff. And I'm like, wow, I really didn't miss this. Like, you know, I didn't miss starting this whole relationship thing all over again and having to think twice about what I'm asking and all that stuff. But I think that when it comes to negotiating, like you said, Danny, it's important to be fair. And sometimes on the first order specifically, I will see where I can squeeze or what I can do elsewhere, right? Yeah. Maybe I can't get the price down a little bit with the supplier, but I can come to my freight forwarder and say, wait a minute, can we find another way? Can we ship it this way? Can we do this? And that'll bring it down the dollar that I need. Or maybe I can go on Amazon, if we're selling on Amazon, and say, well, wait a minute, maybe I can actually sell it for $2 more. And that's where I'm going to get the target profit. It's not always about getting the cheapest price. And I never really go for the cheapest one anyway.
Do you know the other thing as well? And I know that, I don't know if it was Kian who said it, and I know it's acceptable in the culture to do it. And I've never done it and I never would, because I feel for me it's bait and switch. You know, just before you put the order in, you then ask to negotiate, because it's almost like, right, you've got them over the line, you've whet the appetite, you're ready to do it, the PO's there, and then you try and squeeze them, say, I've got a better offer down the road, what can you do? I don't think that bodes well for relationships.
Yeah, I don't do that.
I don't do that either. But when I think previously we
know about it, and people teach that in courses. But I think that's the worst thing you could do for long-term trust with someone.
Yeah, because that'll come back to bite you later on as well. Because maybe if they anticipate that that's how you play, then they'll deliberately put their prices up to add a tolerance for something like that, and then you'll end up getting your discount, but you ended up just getting the price that you were going to get anyway. If you know what I mean. But how I like to do it in a fair way is that, like, even if I'm working with a supplier for like 3, 5, 8 years, it doesn't matter. I still educate myself on the market price. Even for the products that I keep buying, I still shop around and ask different suppliers what their price is for that. And I even get suppliers approach me who buy my products and send it to me with a sample and say, here's our price. And they kind of give it to you as a loss leader because they want to get your orders. And I always have an open communication with my suppliers to say, hey, look, obviously we're in this together for the long term. I want to continue to do the business with you, but currently you're charging me $9 and I've got the supplier here offering me $8.50, and I just want to give you the first opportunity to match it. And so they very much respect and appreciate that okay, hey, he's still shopping around, he's still doing his job, but he still wants to continue the business with me. And then it's their decision if they want to like match the price, which 99% of the time that they usually do. So that's important as well. The other thing I would say as well is that always check with your manufacturers, like what materials they're holding in stock, because so many times they get canceled orders or like whatever, they order too much, or they've got, you know, material just in there for like, you know, the domestic market. And if you want to negotiate as well, sometimes you can negotiate in a way that really helps them as well by taking the stock that they can't get rid of. And that's not just like finished products, but that's raw materials as well, because they might have a certain red fabric which has just been sitting there for a couple of years, which is the same polyester that you use on your products. Well, now if you use that red instead of like, I don't know, the pink that you wanted to order, you can get a much better price. So you can still negotiate that way as well. And the other thing I'd say about negotiation is that, you know, as we said, we're in this for the long term, but you have to choose your partner very, very wisely, right? Because like you're going to be in this, I mean, expect that you're going to be in this business for the long term until you want to sell it, if that's what your plans are. But like for me, I've worked with some of my suppliers for like 10 years, and like, you know, we've gone on holiday together. I've gone to their weddings, they've come to Scotland, and it's like, we're very, very close, right? And it's like, when you're friends like that, you don't hide these like little things to try and make more money on the orders. You're just like, you want to see each other win, and you want this to be last as long as possible. You want to be as fun as possible. And it's like, the better like, so what I'm saying is, like, when you have a choice of supplier, like, just pick the one that you get along with the most, because they're most likely to want to serve you and like want to see your business grow as well. And then for the people who can't get out to China, well, you can still build that relationship through WeChat. You know, WeChat is the app that the Chinese use for communication. And even if you can't get out there, still, you know, add them on there, share photos of what you get up to with your family, what you do on your weekends, when you play sport, whatever. And they like that stuff. You know, people buy from people and they want to feel involved. They want to see like our side of the world as well. You know, it's funny how many messages that I've been getting from Chinese suppliers right now who think I'm still in America, and they're asking if I'm safe because of the riots, you know, and that's, again, building relationships. And it's like, I know they've got my back. I know they're thinking about me in this time of need, the same way I thought about them when Corona first hit in their side of the world. And that goes a long way.
You and you asking about their family and stuff.
Exactly.
Saibi made a good point here. He said, look, it can be valuable to agree on price early, but to negotiate on the product, ask for better quality materials or packaging and so on. That is different. I like that. That is another way of getting, not doing the bait and switch effectively. Just say, I like this. I'm not going to ask for a discount, but can we improve here? What can you do? Because in some cases, the adjustment in price that you ask for in terms of percentage may be way higher than the physical material that they use, that they can increase the quality of that. Then they walk away with and save face. So do you, and you still maintain a good relationship. So I think that's good.
For sure.
We have a question here. Kian, your favorite sourcing agents. How do you manage if you use a sourcing agent that always gives you fair price and it's always amazing, would you still try to negotiate? No. How's about best to negotiate with a sourcing agents that have to negotiate for you to the supplier? So first question, go on, you take this again. Go on.
Well, I was going to say, the first question, I agree with you as well. Like, if everything's going smooth, then you don't need to change it. You know, if it's not broken, then why fix it?
Don't rock the boat.
Exactly. If they're doing the job for you,
making money, why do that? Because you've got to look at the long term. Second part of the question, what do you think there?
So the second part of the question, here's my thing with sourcing agents, right? And here's why I don't use them. Because like we've talked on the show many times about how much I value that relationship with the manufacturer. And when you use a sourcing agent, it's the sourcing agent which owns that relationship with the manufacturer, not you. And depending on the type of sourcing agent that you work with, sometimes they take care of their own incentives rather than doing the job for you. You know, they're going to work with certain factories which treat them good or give them an additional margin and stuff like that. So you never really know that. And some sourcing agents never even reveal who the factory is. And some sourcing agents have got a direct line of communication to be like, well, this is a factory where your goods are made. If you want to come, I'll take you there. We can visit together. So I would always like preference working with sourcing agents who are willing to be completely open with you. Because if they're willing to be completely open and transparent, then they don't have anything to hide. But it's the ones who don't want to share who the manufacturer is. It's like, if that sourcing agent gets hit by a bus tomorrow, you don't know where your goods are made. And it's like, and then also
like, valid point, because I argued this with you before, because I hate sourcing. So I'd rather give it to a sourcing agent, and I understand they need to own the relationship, so I don't care. But like you said, if they get hit by a bus, I'm fucked basically. Exactly.
And then that's another thing about sourcing agents. Always ask your sourcing agent, are you a solo agent or are you part of a company? Because if they're a solo agent and they're taking out the game, then that's it, gone. But like if they're a company, then someone else will pick up after them, and then you have a little bit more confidence that someone's going to take care of you, and then your orders will still keep going. So those are the sort of things I would consider. And then, you know, every sourcing agent works in different ways, and they charge different percentages. Some of them taking upfront costs, some of them are paid hourly, some of them take a percentage of the order. And just do what you said in the first part of the question of just what makes you feel comfortable and what works for you. Because even if it's like a percentage of the order, that might be a low percentage, and you're like, well, this one's taking 3%, but that one's taking 5%. But the one who was taking 3% is also getting 2% from the factory. So it's still the same, if you know what I mean. So just sort of consider those different options and do what works best for you.
Sharon, let's revisit your trust and your suppliers.
I'm like thinking about whether I should. I don't know if Kian would want me to say a story that we went through about a client of mine.
If you had to think about it, it's probably no.
I think he actually would, because it just proves why.
I'm open.
It's about Declan, Kian, and about his choice and how I really regret it. Is it okay if I share it without saying the company's name?
Yeah, sure. I don't mind.
Okay. So I have a client that is in the middle of inventing a product. And this is how I met Kian, and thank God I met Kian, was I went to someone. The only thing I don't share is my sourcing agents. So I don't have sourcing agents for everything. I have one sourcing agent for one specific line of products that I do. Everything else, I own the relationship. And also, I know who the manufacturer is through the sourcing agent, but I still use a sourcing agent. Anyway, and my client we needed someone that we trusted. And it was between going with Kian and a very big sourcing company that I'm not going to mention who they are. Okay. And my client, who is in the UK, decided to go with the very big company because it was a big company, a big sourcing agency. And I'm crying about it every single day. And I wish that he would have gone with Kian from the very beginning, because this very big company, and the difference, it had nothing to do with pricing. It had only to do with the fact that my specific client was, I think, I'm just a little bit scared of going with what he thought was a one-man show, which would have been the right thing here. And I had to do what my client wanted. And the thing that's happening now is that we're getting the most exaggerated quotes that you would get. Now, I'm not a newbie. I know how the system works when it comes to, how it works with sourcing agents and how it works with molds. For example, we're getting quotes for $36,000 for a mold when I know that it's only supposed to be a maximum of, let's say, 12K maximum and things like that. And I'm going back and forth with Kian behind the scenes, because Kian and I are friends now, and he's doing an amazing job of supporting me on this in the background. And I'm like, sometimes when you make these sorts of decisions when it comes to sourcing agents, like, it's so important, what.
So they're highballing. So the point of negotiation so far off, you can't get anywhere near it. So ultimately, it's going to be a good margin for them. Because if you say, actually, that's 27 grand.
They're only taking care of themselves here. And this is what Kian's trying to say with, Kian, like, the issue here was that they make their percentage of the PO, which is what Kian's consistently saying is a mistake. The higher the purchase order is, the more percentage they're actually making. Yeah. And like, about this specific order, it's extremely effed up because it's so exaggerated. This is a big, very well-known company.
Effectively, to crystallize it, let's just say they've quoted at 27K, but it should be 20K. You can't go in at 18. Yeah, but you can't go in at 18 because they say that's ridiculous because the starting price is 27. When really it should be 20, it'd be 2K lower. Yeah.
The thing is, this my client has me. So I went on the phone and I said to the sourcing agent, I just want you to know that, like, I've been sourcing for a very long time, and like, your pricing is totally exaggerated. And I wish that, we would have gone with the original person that I wanted to go with. And I really went hardcore at them. And things have changed a little bit now because they've understood that I'm in the picture. But when it comes to making these sorts of decisions, especially if you're inventing a product, like, number one, go to Kian. and number two, it's when it comes to these negotiations and things like that, it depends. Not all sourcing agents make their money through the purchase order. Some will, there's different ways of working with sourcing agents. There's some that will actually just come and give you, a variety of different suppliers and will take a certain fee for it. There's some that will take it. There's different ways. You really need to be smart about who you decide to go with. And you also need to understand what the market value is. Like, if this guy didn't have me, he may have ended up paying $37,000 for like $12,000 maximum dollar mold, And like, he may have not known, and he may have tried to negotiate it to like 25K or whatever. I'm just making it up, and thought that he really won. Like, hey, I got it down from 37 to 25, but 25 is still way too much. What I mean? So to answer that, I kind of went off subject, but I said this because you really need to pick also your sourcing agent correctly and think about who you're going with and do your homework on it. And not always are the really big companies necessarily the right people to go with. And actually, sometimes you should really do the opposite because, I'll stop here. I'm not going to start blowing up Kian. People think he's paying me to do it. But which totally isn't.
Checks in the post.
yeah, it's just this is what I was thinking about when you were talking about it. I was like, oh, it just makes me think of this $37,000 quote.
So can't you walk away? IB says, can't you walk away if they're not playing ball, i.e. the prices they are offering you, therefore unreasonable, the position to work with them is untenable because they're way too high, therefore they shouldn't be forced into a trade, into a deal that's it's, I can't think of the word, but it's
it was one of the quotes. It wasn't the only quote. It was one of the quotes, and the like, I'm not like I'm not really well known. I'm not Danny or Kian, but people know that I exist. And when they realized that I was involved in this, let's just say it did change, which kind of shows you that when they thought that this was a naive person working on his own, compared to when they realized that they had this coach behind him that understands a thing or two, it's interesting how suddenly the quotes were changed. Like how suddenly from 37,000 they went down to, let's say, 12, right? So it's interesting how that happened.
Yeah, but the thing is, then you have to question, how did you get to that point? If someone goes for 37K to 12K, that says everything about the person and the business and the relationship, because no one has that kind of margin to work with. So why did you start so high? So I think what that does is, if anything, they shouldn't have gone down that low because they could at least save some face, but they've got no face now. To go from 37 to 12 is a liberty.
There were a few more there. I took a very long story and tried to make it. I can talk forever. I tried to make it as short as possible, but I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I hope somehow we'll end up.
So moral of the story.
With Kian.
Dialing back the clock. Moral of the story. How would you have dealt with that in hindsight, which will help the audience?
If it was me personally, I would have. The thing is, I in general don't like working with big names, like big, huge companies where you're just like one more person, right? But there may be other people here that prefer to do that. Okay. I actually think that the most important thing when it comes to, if you're going to use a sourcing agent, is to really do a lot of background checks and to ask for references and speak to people and see what you've been, which we actually did. He actually did do this, but I think that sometimes it's better to go with, I'm saying the smaller guy, and I don't mean that in any bad way, Kian. I just mean that, you know what I mean, right? That you're not this like, you're not also a one-man show. You're not also a one-man show. Actually, you have this whole family business behind you, and you've got a shitload of what do you call it, contacts in China, and you've got, I think, like one of the biggest amount of suppliers one person has worked with. Ken's got like huge amount of suppliers that he's worked with, but I think that sometimes actually, like when you go with someone who it's going to be more one-on-one, or with a company where it's just a few people, it's actually a lot better than like these huge companies where you're just one more person. And if you walk away, they don't really give a crap, I don't know. I think that's the moral of the story, kind of.
So let's, Kian, just to revisit, going back to China and negotiating at the Canton Fair.
Yeah.
Let's talk through the steps there. What you think is the right thing to do. I always say to people, never talk price at the Canton Fair, because it's jacked up. They're going to have a price list because they don't know if they're going to cover their stand or not, because they don't know the amount of business. You probably have a different mindset to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like yes and no, because like it depends like how long you've been in the game for, because like most of the suppliers that I've talked to, I've been doing business with them already for many years, so we can kind of like cut the bullshit and get straight to the chase, because we've already gone through that process.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
That's suppliers I'm talking about if you're walking around Canton Fair looking at stands, walk up to them, you don't say MOQ, how much they cost. No. You talk about the quality and where you're from, what province it's in, and that kind of stuff,
Yeah, so you're right. Like when you're sort of dealing with a supplier for the first time at the Canton Fair, I'm trying to just qualify them as a supplier, and the negotiation is going to come later, because I know that I'll educate myself on the market price and I'll get the best price that's on the market. But right now I'm just trying to decide, is this someone that I want to work with? And then you do that by, first of all, you yourself being very educated on your products, so you can quiz the supplier and know if they know their stuff regarding that product. Are they just a trading company reselling this product, or are they actually the genuine manufacturer of this product? Which other companies are they supplying, which markets are they supplying, what testing have they done, what audits have they done on their factory, and things like that. And in general, like I like to work with the factories direct. I'm not saying anything bad about trading companies, but I like to work factories directly because they're more of the decision maker. And when decision makers are in the picture, that's when you can sort of get more advantages, like, you know, asking for credit. And, you know, at the start of the show, we were talking about like different ways that we negotiate on price. But I think it's also important to discuss like different ways that we can negotiate on credit. And it's like that also is an important part of your business where you have to have a bit of leverage in the relationship as well. You know, you have to place several orders. You have to show that your orders are going up, and that the supplier starts to realize, okay, this guy's loyal to us. He does good business. His orders are going up. So if we keep him happy, then business is just going to grow and grow and grow. And the good thing about credit is it kind of like turbocharges your growth, because now essentially you're able to try new things. Like you're not going to run out of stock as you would have before, because now you can place bigger orders. Or maybe because you're able to get more consistent stock, well, now you can start to send by sea rather than by air. And then now like you can save money in other ways. And then also like credit can allow you to try new products that you weren't really considering before, because now you can put money into sort of new things that might work. And then also credit allows you to expand into take on more stock to expand into new marketplaces. And I think there's an art as well in sort of being able to talk to the manufacturer and ask, oh yeah, nice one, Side.
That's great. That is. We'll read it out to the benefit of the podcast when it gets released tomorrow. Canton Fair is like speed dating. You should never talk dirty until the second or third date.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And then, you know, the thing is with credit as well, it's you can't just go up and say, hey, give me credit on my order. Like there's an art to that negotiation as well. And the way I like to do it is just to be very open book and show like your forecast, your sales projections. Like whenever you launch a new product, well, this is the numbers that we normally do, but with your support, and if you can give us more stock, we're not going to run out of stock, so we can even further increase those numbers. Or if you can demonstrate when are your key selling periods, like, okay, it's Black Friday, it's Cyber Monday, it's Q4, that's our biggest sales period. And then you can get credit on those orders and you can take more stock and get more sales. Then you can grow even faster. But it's not just saying, hey, I think we're going to do bigger numbers. You're actually showing them your numbers. And then here's the other thing, like even if it's for a new product that you've never done before, you can still show like the numbers from a software like Helium 10 and be like, hey, this is what the top 3 like sellers are doing for this particular product. But with the credit that you give me, I can undercut them on price. And I've already shown you that I'm good at selling online. So if you can just give me this price and give me this credit, then we're going to be where those guys are. So you're just sort of like, you're showing them that it's win-win, as we talked about earlier. It's not just, hey man, give me some credit, I don't want to pay you for 90 days. It's, you'll loan me this credit and we're going to grow together and we're going to grow very big. And here's the proof. I
mean, I've seen it, my own eyes at Canton Fair, people being really aggressive, like it's like that's a good tactic. You know,
that's shameful. Yeah,
it is. And it's like really aggressive. I'm like, people go in, take a picture of the stand, do a picture, like a selfie with them so you can send them to the factory after. I like use Evernote so you can make some notes, take some pictures, part of Evernote, voice recording. So every time you go to each one of these stands that you're interested in stuff, you'd be able to create a bit of dialogue in an Evernote. So you've got images, you've got voice, you've got text. And because a lot of people go and do their research and when they sit down at the hotel, they're exhausted in the evening and they start to reconcile the day, or they don't, or they wait to the end of the trip, they miss out on a load of stuff. But getting back on point, no, I see this where people standing there very aggressive. It's almost like their way of doing business is a zero-sum game. In order for me to win, you have to lose. And I don't agree with that in any form of business.
It's terrible. And I'll tell you, like, so obviously I've been at so many different Canton fairs and sat down in so many different meetings. I'll tell you the one thing that irritates the suppliers the most, and they'll never show it, is a lack of respect. And it's like, I've been in so many meetings where I've sat down, right? And another buyer, maybe they work for a really big company and they just feel like, I don't know, they've got a massive ego because they place big orders. And they literally, like, we're sitting down in a meeting at a table, drinking tea with our notepads out and a sample in front of us. And they literally just chuck a product on the table, interrupt the meeting and be like, how much for a container of this? And like,
that's dick swinging. I don't like that. That's just that's being an arsehole, basically. Complete arsehole.
And the supplier kind of looks at me in a way that, like, do you want me to like cut him off? And I kind of look at him like, no, take it. And so I'm just sort of watching, like, you know, eating the popcorn, just like, I would just want to see like how big of a hole is this guy digging for himself. Because
that says everything about the person being a complete arsehole than anything else. You don't need to do that. You don't need to, no matter how much money you earn, You do not need to treat humans like that. That's disgusting.
But that's the thing, because the suppliers don't even want these type of orders, because if that's the way they negotiate and if that's the way they do business, they're the ones who are just going to cancel the payment right before the order, as we were talking about earlier, or saying like, oh, I've got a better price. And they know these have happened, these sort of situations have happened. And the cool thing is that, like, so as I said, I just started my YouTube channel. And last time I went to China in November, I went into a factory and I interviewed the factory boss. And I said, tell me the customers that you like to work with, and tell me the customers that you don't like to work with. And he sort of went over these sort of points. And one of the things he mentioned was, I said, what's the biggest order you've ever had? And he was like, it was over 1 million units. And he's like, but to be honest, I never want that order again, because of the hell that he went through. And then imagine like the risk that goes into an order like that. If someone says, right, I'm pulling the plug, or you didn't do this right, and they make it up. They're very manipulative, these buyers as well. So they try and put like all the pressure back on the supplier. So no one likes these type of people. So essentially, people buy from people. We got to be our natural selves, and then that's where you win the most.
Yeah. So top 5 things. Don't be a dick. Both people have got a win at the table, right?
Yeah.
Negotiate on quality.
Yeah.
Be nice. That's 4.
Yeah.
Sharon, going to give me number 5.
Cheapest isn't always the best thing.
There you go. We've got some questions here. Let's do these. Can you give an example of the credit you are mentioning? Is it to take products for free and bring back the money after 90 days?
Well, there's like loads of different styles, right? So it kind of just depends on what are your needs for your business. But if you physically, like, if you're heavily invested in cash flow, whether that's money has gone into employees or ads or products and stuff like that, and you genuinely, your sales are going up and you can't afford your next purchase order because you're waiting for your payout from Amazon, that's a kind of perfect example where your growth has been stunted by a lack of cash flow, but getting credit from your supplier by having a good relationship is going to allow you to now continue to grow your business rather than to go out of stock, lose ranking, lose sales, and then have to build that back up again. So, you know, the credit could be even like 15 days, 30 days, 60 days. It doesn't have to be 90 days. I just like 90 days is kind of like the maximum. And I say 90 because like some of the retailers that I supply require 90 days from us. So I also like to ask my supplier for 90 days. But even the credit can even just be like not paying a deposit, because, you know, the standard terms are paying you 30% deposit and then 70% balance on shipment. But you can just say, hey, let me pay 100% on shipment. There's loads of different like stages of the game. But the important thing is for you to do a cash flow forecast to say, okay, this is what my projected sales are. This is how many I think I can sell as a result of getting credit. This is when I'm going to get my money back from my sales. This is when I'm going to get paid up by Amazon. And then sharing that information with your supplier to be like, if you give me this credit, on the 15th of October is when you're getting paid back because of this spreadsheet. And they know you've just made a very calculated decision, and you're not just, you know, plucking numbers out the wind to be like, oh, I think I can pay you back by Q4. You know, so that's like the difference between getting it and not getting it.
Yeah. Cy says here, these corporate buyers are trained to be complete dicks, which is a shame.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Andrea, how's best to negotiate with the sourcing agents that have to negotiate for you to the supplier? So I think we kind of didn't really cover it in full. I find that if it's a kickoff product where they have to go and do the research, you tell them what you want, then they have a basic fee, maybe anywhere between $300 and $700, normally on the lower side of that. And then it's a percentage of manufacturing, whatever you decide to negotiate. That's pretty much the best answer. And that can be anywhere from 2.5% to 6% on a sliding scale.
I don't know if that's what she asked though, Danny. I think she was asking, how are you supposed to negotiate with the sourcing agent? Like, how are you supposed to get them to negotiate for you? Isn't that what she was asking? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, kind of. I think she wanted to know how much you should negotiate with the sourcing agent themselves. But then she's asking, how do you get the sourcing agent? Well, the sourcing agent will have their own style to negotiate with the factory, because that's their relationship and who they are. Generally, they are going to live near the factory and go in and visit and stuff. Not always, but generally, they're normally boots on the ground, aren't they? So that's really going to kind of vary. Yes, thank you, Sharon. So
yeah, that's what she meant. I can just chip in on that and say that you need to come in and tell the sourcing agent. I think so. What she's asking is, how are you supposed to ask the sourcing agent to negotiate for you? So you need to come and make it clear what you can and you can't, like what you can, in the beginning, when you work with the sourcing agent, you either will have some sort of specification sheet or whatever it may be. You give them all the information of what you need, what your forecast is, how much you expect to pay for to sell this product for, and what you need your margin to be, etc. Depending on how you work with the sourcing agent. Okay, this is how I work with ours. And when it comes to getting them to negotiate for you, so they'll come with you with quotes and they'll say, these are the quotes that we have. You just need to come back and voice it. Like, I don't do anything in a manipulative way. I'm straight up. This is too high. Look at this quote. Like, you need to look at all the quotes, this quote versus this quote. Can you see if this manufacturer, this is the one I got the sample from and I want to work with. Can you see, what can be done with this manufacturer, etc. And then they would go back and see what they can do. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. And then we come back to what you and I said earlier, which was sometimes you can't negotiate, you can't get the price down, but you'll find another way to, to get Kevin, within that profit margin.
I don't want to lose your head here. You might have to pick your head over the top here, Sharon. But question here, typically negotiation can involve modifying the product. Let's give an example of a wood shelf. This is too high. Supply offers cheaper wood to use to reduce price. What if you don't want to decrease the quality of the product? Give us other ideas on negotiating price without reducing the quality. Very, very simple. You might not be able to sell that product because it's prohibited in terms of margin. So 1, you dump the product. 2, you don't just lean on the supplier because that's the only place of call. You adjust your price. You look somewhere in the supply chain and all the way up to the product arriving on Amazon, where can you bring down your cost there? Because sometimes it's not just the simple fact is, I want that, I would like to sell it, therefore it's on the supplier's shoulders. Sometimes you can't get the price down from the supplier. So you have to be creative and look elsewhere. Think about if you're talking about a shelf, is that shelf flat packed? Does it come together in parts? Suddenly, if it's a long shelf like this, if it's not flat packed, then that's going to increase your costs. So can it be done into 3 parts where it joins together? Therefore, reducing the size of it, that helps with reducing your shipping costs and also your dimensions at Amazon as well.
That was a perfect answer. And I was also going to say as well that like you should never ever put in jeopardy the quality of your product in order to get a lower price. And if you have a suspicion that you think your factory is going to decrease the quality in order to meet your target price, well, that is when you have to get your goods tested by third parties to make sure they're compliant and they've actually manufactured what it said they're going to manufacture. And then also that's why you do pre-shipment inspections to make sure there's not been any shortcuts. Because if there ever has been any shortcuts, it's better that either you can digitally order before you paid for it, or that whatever it is they've done, it can be corrected at source rather than shipping it to US and then you have to sort of make all those adjustments in the US as well. So that's what I would add to it.
Okay, so Kevin's saying here, thanks, I'm aware of being creative. I don't feel you answered my question. Maybe you saying it's not possible. What I'm saying, Kevin, is that if the price is too high and you can't put a squeeze elsewhere, it doesn't mean that the factory is forced to come down. Maybe they can't afford to give you the lower price that you want because you're setting the tone of the retail price. So what you're looking at is, I need a lower price, therefore factory has to give lower price. But the factory may not be able to offer that because they end up losing money. Therefore, you have to look elsewhere for it. That's the point I was trying to get to.
Danny, can you bring this question back up so I can quickly read it and see? No, that's not it. The long question where you couldn't see my hand. The one where you can't see my hand. There you go. Okay, typically negotiation can involve modifying the product. Let's give an example of wood shelf. This is too high. Supply offers a cheaper wood to use to reduce price. What if we don't want to decrease the quality? Give us ideas on negotiating price without reducing quality. So can I just add all besides credit? Okay. So Danny's answer is like perfect and correct. Sometimes you actually, if you can't, if you've tried to negotiate for the price down, but you want to leave the exact same quality and you can't, as in you've gone through and you've had your samples and you've gotten quotes from all sorts of different suppliers, and the one that you want to work with, you want the exact same quality, you've tried to bring them down and they're not budging, right? Which is what we were talking about earlier, that you don't need to always try and, then you need to go, and this, I'm just saying what you said in a different way. You need to go and have a look at like a bird's eye view of this product. How much can I actually sell it for? right? Can I, like Danny explained, if it's a shelf, can you make it collapsible? Can you make it in 3 parts, like you said, etc.? And then instead of sending it, I don't know, like Ocean Express, can you send it Air Express? Ocean Standard. Or can you try and make that little bit extra profit that you need elsewhere, meaning not necessarily through the supplier? Because, this is something we were all saying in different ways earlier, if you do try and continue to negotiate on that, when it is in the thing, I had a coaching call with someone on a piece of a product that's made out of wood specifically today. And that specific product was a perfect example where it could arrive in pieces where instead of it being whole, the shipping of it is in, because when it comes to ocean shipping, it goes by volume weight. It would have decreased the product in advance because it would have been, like flat rather than actually when it's made. So you need to, Kevin, that asked this question, to go and see how can you make that extra bit amount of profit that you want in a different way, either through the shipping or through putting the price up, or like Danny said, if you can't, then move on to the next product.
I know what it is because you're so invested in it. It's like, I agree sometimes abandoning the product is a solution if margin can't work. But that's the thing. No one wants to abandon that lengthy amount of time that you've put into something. Does that make sense?
Then can you add something small to it that may only cost an extra $1, an extra $2, but it will allow you to sell the product for, I don't know, as a set for an extra, I'm just making this up. Let's pretend if it's a wooden product and it's a cheese board. Okay. Can you add to it a specific type of, those cheese utensil stuff that are made also out of wood, of a specific wood that will only cost an extra $2, but it's going to help you sell the product for, I don't know, $12 more, whatever. Okay. Can you add something to it that may cost you a tiny bit more, as in like $1 more, but you'll be able to get an extra $12, $13 for it? This is when you need to be creative, and you need to actually understand the niche that you're selling in, have a look at the market as an overall, and see that increase percent.
So increase value.
I've got one more to add to that as well, and it's also consider the markets that you're selling in as well, because that might be an expensive product because the import duty into America is very high. But maybe if you look at Germany or UK, well, maybe the import duty will be a lot less, so that price is actually workable. And the same Amazon systems and processes that work selling in America also sell in Europe mostly as well. So just consider if you can do that product in another market.
And if it's your home country that it's in, you can say, if you're in the USA, proudly made in the USA. Therefore, perceived value goes up, charge a bit more. Your chances are you'll be able to negotiate terms to your factory, get 30 days credit, get paid every 2 weeks by Amazon, have a little bit less on the margin, but higher turnover, lower risk, lower MOQs for turning around, so that you can play off some of the factors that way as well.
We actually spoke about wood on a different call, the three of us. And Danny, you actually said that, I think that you said Japan wasn't it? So that's another thing. Maybe China isn't the answer. Maybe you can go to a different country. It'll be cheaper there, which is another thing. So be creative.
Kevin, just be aware that when you do anything related to wood, always make sure it's treated before it leaves, because you imagine sitting on a sweaty boat for 8 weeks. The warps and everything. So just be aware that, and wood, you've got to have it tested for woodworms and things like that. So generally there's like a clear lacquer that will go over the wood, which is a protective mechanism that reduces issues like with light scratching and also with fluids as well. Just bear that in mind. Cool. I think we've pretty much covered quite a lot of this. Yeah, he said wood is example, but I'm just saying if you were working wood, that was something to give you an opportunity to look at. Right. I think we should wrap here. What do you reckon? I think we've done enough with negotiation. Should we negotiate a 7 minutes early finish?
Does anyone have any more questions for us?
Yeah, Kevin says after all that, it doesn't sell any fucking shelves. Come on, Kevin. What are you selling? Go on. No, I'm joking.
I would say you should also negotiate some nice gifts from your suppliers. Like the thing is, like when you go to visit suppliers and stuff, they quite often like to give you gifts. Rather than receiving a gift, I just like to tell them what I like. I love Chinese tea, so every time I go to my factory, they give me a nice sort of decorated Chinese tea set, all nice little teas, and I bring that home. So negotiate some gifts for yourselves as well.
Yeah, here we go. What terms do you negotiate with suppliers to replace items This is in regards to customer returns complaints on the product quality function they received. Do you ask the supplier to cover these items for free and ask them to add those units onto your next order? Yes. Or do you just eat that? Yeah.
No,
So
we put that onto the next order as well.
Yeah. So kind of asking the question to validate. Yeah.
I'll answer it as an Amazon seller after Kian.
Okay, cool. So what I like to go by is, well, first of all, we track all our returns ourselves, right? So we can say, okay, this is how many we ordered, this is how many we had returned, and you sort of share that information with the supplier. Now, it's very important when you're asking for credit or payment back on sort of defected goods, is that you have to sort of monitor what's above the AQL, and the AQL is at accepted quality level. So if you ever get a pre-shipment inspection, they have 3 levels. They have minor, major, and critical. The minor, depending on the product, you're allowed like 4%, and that could be like, I don't know, a scratch on the surface or something like that. The major is that like it's related to the actual like use of the product. Is the use of the product affected as a result of this major defect? And the critical is like, this order is not passed because there's a critical defect with the product, and you're allowed a 0% tolerance for that. So you've identified that 4% minor. But then if you get like 8% returns because of like, I don't know, damage to the packaging or something like that, well, now you have like a tolerance, which is way over the AQL level, which you can now ask for that. And then you can basically get that in terms of like either get them to ship out on your next order, or ship it out immediately by air if they have the stock to manufacture the goods, or even just like, you know, money off your next order. They would never like to give you money off because it's cheaper for them to actually make the product than to just pay you for that. So yeah, that's the way I would look at it. But use AQL level, figure out your percentage, and then share that. But sorry, the other thing is it's important to be fair with your manufacturer as well, because quite often you can get returns on Amazon just because, I don't know, it was like delivered too late, and that's nothing to do with the supplier, or that's the one who's like hijacked you. So like, it's important to be fair.
Run a report and show them the report with the facts that got returns based on defects, not just returned on late delivery. Do we pay for samples? Yes and no. Let's explain some context. I'll give some context here. You go to a new supplier, the samples that cost you $50 to $100. You look dirt cheap if you haggle over the price of samples. They're not going to take you seriously because they just think you're a newbie. So yes, you pay for samples in some cases, right? Then these samples will go against your order, so you can claim the money back. But I tend to not bother with samples for $50 to $150 unless it's something specific. I'm not going to haggle over the price of samples. I think that makes me look cheap if I did. But when you've got a relationship with a supplier, they generally don't charge you for the samples anyway. They eat the cost through goodwill. What's your take for both of you two?
Sharon?
I agree 100%. With a newer supplier, first of all, you'll usually need to get like 3, 4, 5 samples. Not 3, 4, 5, but you may need to get at least a minimum of 3 different samples. And you can expect that you'll end up working with one of them, and that one will usually be the one that will, well, not refund you. It will just come off of your purchase order. And yeah, I do not get charged by my suppliers when I get samples today. People like suppliers that I've been working for like over a year, they don't even, you know, they've never asked me to pay for a sample unless you needed to go and create a mold and to get something, you know, really customized. It's going to cost like $1,000 or whatever or more. If it was more expensive, then yes, you can expect to pay for it. But also that will usually be, you know, you'll get that back through your purchase order once you make that purchase order as well.
Yeah, I would say like the whole ethos behind like paying for samples is to show your seriousness if you're an actual serious buyer. Because think about how many requests these suppliers get, right? Either on Alibaba or the Canton Fair. They're like, oh, send us a sample of this. Well, imagine if they have to send out 100 samples every week at their own cost, and people are just wanting a freebie. Like if it's a massage gun, oh, I fancy a massage gun, I'll just pretend I'm going to buy a container so I can get a free sample rather than buy it for like $200 on Amazon. So it's like they get used to that sort of stuff. And that's why like they probably don't want to charge you, but they're just asking to see if you're going to pay for it, to see if you're a serious buyer or not. And by you paying for it, and then either if you get that money returned to you or not, you're showing your seriousness. And one cool thing I did, well, the experience at the Canton Fair, is that because I know this goes on, right? I was actually in the booth for a product, and I said, oh, can I take a sample of this on the last day of the fair? And the guy goes, yeah, sure, it's 100 RMB, which is like, I don't know, $10. And $10 was expensive for this thing. And I was like, $10 for this? Like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, screw it, I'll just show my seriousness. So I give him 100 RMB and he gives me the sample. And as soon as he gives me the sample, he gives him 100 RMB back, just to say, I was just testing you to see if you're willing to pay for it, but now I know you're willing to pay for it.
Plug it.
Yeah. So it's like that's what they have to deal with. So just understand that, yes, initially in the first few times when you deal with a manufacturer, you might have to just eat that cost. But once you've actually placed the orders, you never have to worry about paying for samples again, because they know you place business and they just want to help you grow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't want to nickel and dime effectively. Don't nickel and dime, because it just makes you look cheap effectively.
Also, you can get samples consolidated, so you can actually get, if you're a newbie or you're working with a new supplier and you're now getting, I don't know, 3 or 4 samples. Usually they don't charge you for the actual product sample. They charge you usually for the shipping, right? Usually. It depends on what kind of product. If it's a massage gun, maybe they would charge you for the actual product.
If they've got to make up the sample, generally, if it's off the shelf with shipping,
if they
have to send it out of the house,
if they need to go and make a full-on customized version or whatever it is, then yes, usually you will get charged. But if it's something that is, they're sending you originally an off-the-shelf version, usually they're not going to pay. You're not going to pay for the unit. You're going to pay for the shipping. And something that you can do, which the shipping of it ends up being a lot cheaper, is consolidate them. Get it sent to one place, and then they send all of the samples. Like my inspection company actually does that for me specifically. I know there's lots of other, I forgot the name, Trip 10, something like that also do it. But you can actually get it sent to one place, and they'll send all the samples to you.
Yeah, consolidation company, isn't it? Right, I'm going to give a rundown what's coming up for the rest of the week. Tomorrow is COVID-19, Amazon and the recovery. Joining me will be Brandon Young, John Hefter from Thrasio, and Leran Hirschkorn. Then on Wednesday, we've got Off Amazon Traffic. We're bringing in Anthony Lee, Zach Franklin and Joe Reichfeld. Then on Thursday, Steve Simonson returns with me. It's going to be episode number 80, consistent shows in a row, including the Branded by Women. So from there, guys, I'm not going to be doing 7 days a week. So what will happen from Thursday at the 80th show, that'll be my final one. And then I'm going to take off Friday and Saturday. And then we're just going to be working from Sunday, our Mindset Sundays, right through to Thursday on a regular basis. On Sunday, we're going to have Mindset Sunday. Leran and others, include Ash Thompson, will return for that. Guys, what is the best way to start with you, Sharon?
You can reach out to me on Facebook, through my website, Amazon Alpha Coaching. You can see my YouTube channel, which is Sharon Evan, and you can go to my Facebook group, which is Amazon FBA Alphas. Cool.
Kian?
Yeah, so as I said at the start of the show, super excited. Just launched my YouTube channel, which launching videos every single week on different topics around sourcing. So that's just Sourcing with Kian on YouTube, and I would highly appreciate if you check out the videos and you subscribe and we connect there. And then just for like daily questions that you may have, just Sourcing with Kian on Facebook, and then also quite active on Instagram, Kian_JG. That's John, J for John and G for golf. And then just if you want to socially chat on IG, I'll see you there.
Cool. Facebook user says, thank you. Ramon says, awesome content. Thanks. Juan says, Danny McMahon, Sharon Evan, Kian and Golzari, thanks for another great show. Right. So we'll come back. We'll come up with some content for next Monday or Tuesday. Guys, going to love and leave you. Stay home. Take care of your family. Stay safe. See you tomorrow.
See you guys.
BST, 4 p.m.